right, Joe Fiori. Welcome to the 152 show. How you doing, brother?
Good, good. Thanks for having me, Lou. I appreciate you taking some time to talk about New York State wrestling. I love what you've been doing on social media, promoting New York State wrestling, getting New York State wrestling out there, making us more competitive or trying to get us more competitive with some of those other
We
states.
got some work to do. We got some
I
work to
know.
do.
I hear you. I hear you. All
So,
good.
absolutely. So, we'll start. You are the head coach of Kellenberg, correct?
Yep, yep. I'm the head coach at Kellenberg High School. Just finished my fifth year as a head coach. Been coaching there 13 years. I also
Wow.
graduated from Kellenberg High School too.
Oh,
Um,
wow. So you
yeah.
coaching at
So
your alma mater right there. Okay.
yes, yes. I'm blessed to be back at my alma mater. Graduated in 2009.
Okay.
I started wrestling at Kellenberg, and then I wrestled in high school, and then went to college. Wrestled in college for
Hmm.
Gettysburg College Division III school,
Pennsylvania, right?
Pennsylvania. Yep,
Yeah.
yep, yep. And then I came back, got into teaching, and coaching came along with it, which is great.
Okay. Okay. So interesting. So I didn't know that you wrestled there in high school. So I guess we'll start here.
Yeah.
What was it like being a Catholic school guy in 2009? Or do you see any differences from 2009 Catholic school compared to 2026, current day Catholic school?
So the level of wrestling right now it's like exponentially better. I mean, winning Catholic states back in 2008, 2009 was tough, like any, sectional tournament. But
Mm,
in terms of like the quality of wrestlers, the Catholic schools are just so much stronger, deeper.
mm,
Just placing in a Catholic states itself, especially at some weights, is tough. It's tough.
absolutely.
Um, so I've seen a huge change in the Catholic states, and even
Hmm.
the strength of teams have changed over the course of the last almost 20 years now.
Hmm.
Some of the teams have been consistent, but some other teams have also gotten better. And I think the club wrestling has helped with that all
Okay.
over New York State. But definitely the quality of wrestling has changed from 2009, um,
Absolutely. I mean,
which is good to see.
yeah, yeah, absolutely. I mean, I can even attest to that. I graduated a few years after you, but in 2014, you had a Catholic school kid. It was like, it was like a bye kind of, easy match. Of course, there's always exceptions to the rules. So there would be some guys that were obviously tough in the Catholic school, but for the most part, if you got PSAL, Catholic school, or Section 10 in the Division I states, it was like you knew you were good. You're like, okay, this is
Right,
like
right.
the warm up match right here. But
Yep.
obviously in 2026, that is not the case anymore. Catholic school took second place. That might be the highest finish. Somebody could fact check me, but I think that might be the highest finish ever for Catholic school in
I
in
think it.
uh in the states.
I think it is. And
Yeah.
I know last year in 2025 we did very well too. I think we finished
Mhm.
third. I want to say
Okay.
last year. I'd have to double check the facts, but I'm pretty sure. And we've slowly, I think, in the last 5 years have gotten better. Maybe, yeah, about 5 years. I think we've gotten better
Mhm.
um, in the New York State tournament, which is it's good to see. It's good to see that the level of wrestling is getting better and in some of those weaker sections as in the past, because that means just wrestling in New York as a whole is getting better.
Mhm.
And I think you see that reflected, even at the national level, Division I, two, or three,
Mhm.
in college, and that's ultimately what we want for some kids, that want to pursue college wrestling is to be better there and be able to compete with kids from out of state.
Yeah, absolutely. So you being a Catholic school coach in 2026,
Yeah.
it's been for the past 5 years, but we'll talk current day. What are some challenges that you see being a Catholic school um coach? Basically, you know, whether it be rules in New York State or things with schedule. Do you think do you think it's it works in your favor, works against you being a Catholic school in New York? So talk about that.
There's pros and cons to it, and nothing like negative. Not negative, but there's pros and cons to it.
Hmm.
The pro of like coaching in a Catholic school, we have some flexibility in how we schedule our league matches, which is kind of nice. We have a small
Mm-hmm.
league, competitive small league,
Mm-hmm.
and we have the ability to kind of to get out of state. So I can take you through our schedule this past season.
Yep. I was going to ask you about that as well, but
Yeah.
go ahead.
So yeah, sorry to jump to that. So our schedule this past season, we wrestle in some of the local public school events. We always start with the Battle at the Beach tournament. That's like their big event, and that's a
Okay. Long
competitive.
Beach. Yeah, it's
Yeah,
tough.
Long Beach. It's a tough tournament. And then we, for the past 3 or 4 years, we go out to New Jersey and we wrestle another Catholic school, actually two Catholic schools out there, Immaculata and Pope
Okay.
John.
Okay.
Two good programs. Immaculata is a fairly new program. They actually started, well, I have to double check the year. 2023, I think, was their first season. They're coached by Rod Van Ness, Shane Van Ness's dad,
Okay.
and they just had, I think they had 5 or 6 state qualifiers and a couple state placers. Like a guy took third in New Jersey States, which is
I mean, listen,
tough.
that's it's no joke right there.
And all those guys come back next year, and we're wrestling them next year. I can't even imagine. They're going to be tough. So we wrestle them and Pope John, and sometimes they bring some other Jersey schools too.
Hmm.
And then, some tournaments we unfortunately are kind of limited as to what we can get into being a Catholic school. So we've had to kind of bounce our schedule around. So our schedule hasn't been very consistent. Um,
I hear some I hear they're boycotting some of the Catholic schools.
in
Some coaches are salty about what's going, about the success of the Catholic schools. And I hear that they're if they know a Catholic school is going to be there, they pull out of the tournament, or they're not extending the invite to Catholic
I
schools.
don't think nobody's like pulling out of the tournament, but I don't know how much of an invitation is being extended to the Catholic schools,
Hmm.
which makes it challenging when making our schedule. But there are some schools that do include us. We go out to Suffolk a lot
Hmm.
and wrestle out there. We wrestle North Babylon; they're a tough program. Um, we wrestle in the Sachem North this Joe Davison tournament this past December. It's a
Okay.
real
Yeah.
tough
Yeah.
tournament. Trying to go through, and then we go to we host a tournament, which has been a challenge, being that we host a tournament as a Catholic school. It has been tough, filling our tournament because of
Mm.
some tension out there.
Politics.
Yeah, yeah, yep, yep, yep.
Politics.
And that's kind of been frustrating,
Yeah.
because we wanted. I had a New Jersey team in my tournament a couple years ago,
Hmm.
and I hope to get more out of state teams to our tournament, but also
Hmm.
include the local teams.
Of course.
And it's been tough. It's been tough. I don't necessarily think it's the date of our tournament. I think it's some teams just don't want to go near it for a number of reasons that those Nassau or Suffolk or upstate or coaches, for whatever reason, which is a challenge.
I really don't understand it. I don't. I don't. To me, it makes no sense. I just, if you look at, we'll just take, I keep referring back to New Jersey and Pennsylvania, right? Because, in my
Yeah.
opinion, those are two of the best wrestling states in the country. They're literally our neighbors,
Yep.
right? A lot of the best teams in New Jersey and in Pennsylvania are the Catholic schools, right? The
Correct.
Virgin Catholics, the Camden Catholics, the Bishop McCours, right? These are all Catholic schools, right?
Hmm.
And in Pennsylvania and New Jersey, you know, the public schools are going to battle with them, right? They're
Right.
not complaining, they're not shying away, they're not extending invites. They know this is how it is and this is what we got to do. We want to be the best. You got to beat the best. So
Correct.
I really don't understand what the cons would be to wrestle in a Catholic school tournament or to do a dual meet against a Catholic school. Like, you could educate me, like, but would it somehow mess them up for seeding purposes and in the postseason wrestling against Catholic schools? Like, that's the only way. That's the only thing that could make sense to me potentially. Still, me. I'm a guy. I
It could
say
be.
duck no smoke, but
Right.
but
No, it could be seating. I don't know. I don't know if they have any seating criteria against us. I would have to look at, we don't get
look
invited
into
to
it.
the different public sectional meetings, so we don't know how they seed their tournaments. Some
Mm.
of us have an idea, like the
Yeah, of
federation,
course.
we know
Yeah.
how to seed, but so we don't know if their kids are getting points to if they beat a Catholic school wrestler. I know in New Jersey, some of those public schools don't have an option.
Mm.
The Catholic schools are in the districts. So if the
Ah,
Catholic schools in the district, the public schools don't have a choice. They have to wrestle
they have to
those
wrestle
Catholic
against them.
schools.
Mm.
And then in the regions, if those Catholic schools are in their region, they have to wrestle them. Um, I will mention one of my college buddies. He's a coach up at Pleasantville
Mm.
in New York.
Was that Section
Wrestling,
1?
yeah,
Pleasantville,
Section
Section
One.
1? Okay.
Section One. I think it's a D2 school. I think it's a small school.
Okay.
But him and I, he's from New Jersey. He's from Hillsborough. Wrestled at Hillsborough,
Okay.
and he told me that years ago in New Jersey when he was wrestling. This is like 2009, not that long ago, but 2009,
Okay.
2010.
Yeah.
The public schools were still pretty good, but then the Catholic schools all of a sudden in like the 2011 or 2012, it shifted, and it hasn't,
Mm.
and they've now been dominating. And
In Jersey.
in Jersey, yeah, this is in Jersey.
Okay. Hmm.
And he notices he's like the Catholic schools are getting better here in New York.
Hmm.
And if there are more kids from the Catholic school in the state tournament, it would only make our
It'll
state
make it
tournament
better.
would make it better.
I
100%.
agree. I agree. I'm a big
100%.
I'm a big supporter of the Catholic schools. I think that um if they're like the way I see it is back in the days, like what we were talking about, right? When Catholic school was considered an easy match, nobody was complaining,
Right.
right?
Yeah.
Nobody was
Correct.
complaining. It
Correct.
was like if they were like, yo, we want the Catholic school first round, we want the
Right.
Catholic school, but now that the Catholic school is doing damage, now you want to, say, oh, they shouldn't be here. Come on, you got to keep the same energy all the way through.
Right. Right.
You wanted them in the tournament back then, and I always thought it was really tacky when they would take the two pictures. Remember that back in the day? Like
Yep.
if a Catholic school would win the state, they would take the picture with the Catholic school guy winning, on the podium, and then they would take
Right.
them off, and then they would take another picture. I always thought that was so tacky. I'm like,
Yeah.
man, like the second place guy, you really think he wants to be on top of the podium? We're
Yeah.
wrestlers. Like second place guy, he's probably taking that picture like, come on,
Yeah.
you know what I
Yep.
mean? Like, I
100%.
lost.
I wouldn't, if I was the second place guy, I wouldn't walk up there. I was like, no, I'm not.
Yeah, I'm like, bro, I
I didn't
lost.
earn it.
I'm second place. I'm
Right.
happy with second place. I'm second best in the state,
Right. Right.
So yeah, that's crazy. And yeah, another thing that I've been really vocal about, and I like this, that the Catholic schools have the freedom to travel, right?
Correct.
The something I've been very vocal about and that I do not like about New York wrestling is how strict they are in terms of traveling out of state, right? Something that still bothers me to this day was my senior year. I never got to wrestle in any of these. I didn't wrestle in the Beast of the East. I didn't wrestle in the Iron Man. I didn't wrestle in the Powerade, in whatever, Escape the Rock, right?
Yep.
The
Yeah.
highlight of my season and of most New York guys' season is the Eastern States, right? I was like the highlight, that in the state tournament, right?
Right.
But
Right.
the way I see it was I was ranked in the top 10 in the country as a senior, but I did not get to go to these high level tournaments. So for the most part, the whole season, I'm not really seeing much competition, right?
Right.
Until I
Right.
get to
Right.
the Eastern States. And then that's it. And then but then again, you're pretty much walking through it again if you're a high level guy. And then you get to even the counties, it's like you're pretty much walking through that too. And then you go to the States and you're even walking through that too until you get to the semifinals. You know what I mean? So it's like
Right.
we need to increase the competition in season for New York guys. New York guys, the knock has always been that you don't even know what the New York guy has until the offseason, right?
Correct.
Like a lot of New York, a lot of guys in New York do not get a chance to get a national ranking in season. The only way
Right.
you're going to get a national ranking is if you go to the offseason tournaments like Fargo, Super 32,
Yep.
Virginia Beach, whatever. Back in the days, there's Flow Nationals, some I wrestled in. So you had
Yep.
to go
Yep.
to those. Other states have the opportunity to make a name, like a kid can make a name for himself in season. You don't
Right.
have to wait till the off season. So in New York, we need to change that because in my opinion, the Eastern States being the highlight of the season, of it just being D1 versus D2, that is not enough. That is not that's not no that should not be the highlight, that like the unofficial state tournament. And a lot of the
Right.
guys don't even make it there. A lot of the guys don't even wrestle in the tournament, right? I'll give you another
Mhm.
example. Um,
You're talking
my
about Eastern states
Eastern,
now?
yeah, Eastern States, a lot, like a lot of the guys are there, but not everybody's there. Some people don't make it. I'll give
Right.
you an example. My junior year, for my first state title, the guy who won Division 2 that year, I won Division 1. The guy who won Division 2, I didn't see him the whole year. He wasn't at the Eastern States, and
Right.
he went 50-0, and he beat the guy during the year that I beat in the state finals, because they were from the same section,
Right.
Section 6. But I never got to see him. That is a problem, right? That
Right.
is that
Yeah. Yeah.
is a
Yeah.
big problem. Like,
Yeah.
that should not be happening. So, I mean, you can go ahead and expand on my thought.
No,
What do you think?
I'll jump in on Eastern states because it's funny you mentioned that. So we've been going to Eastern states now for 4 years.
Okay.
When I became the head coach, our athletic department was supportive in getting into more national prestigious tournaments like you're talking about. And,
Hmm.
I hope we're sending guys in a couple of years to Beast of the East, if like to
Have
Iron
to.
Man,
Have to.
because, and I'll talk about that. But on Eastern States, so Eastern States is a tournament. To me, it seems like it's D1, D2 combined state championships. Who's the
Hmm.
best? But
Hmm.
not all those guys are necessarily there.
They're not.
And sometimes, if you have like the Catholic schools going, like Kellenberg, like Chaminade, or St.
St.
Francis,
Anthony's.
or St. Anthony. St. Anthony's doesn't go. They haven't gone since I've been the head coach, but it would be
Oh,
good
okay.
if they did go. That would be
Hmm.
another, quality program, or some of the other Catholic programs. Um, if those guys are going, then you have stronger competition. And just one simple thing as to how we don't have quality wrestlers in the state tournament. In 2024, we had a kid. His name was Jonathan Hoffman. He took third. He was unseeded at the Eastern States tournament in
Hmm.
2024. He lost his first match. He drew the 1 seed, lost the first match, lost like 5-0. The kid was like, I think, a Rutgers commit from Massachusetts. And then he
Okay.
won all his matches all the way to take third. And he
Wow.
lost to the older LaPlante, Gage
Okay.
LaPlante, who I think was a New York State place winner before. He beat Gage LaPlante in that finals placing. And that was the year Gage was at St. Francis. So
Okay.
you have Hoffman and Gage, two guys who are probably top four in New York State. Only one of them get to go to the state tournament.
Hmm. Yes.
And in the Catholic State Finals, Hoffman loses to Gage LaPlante, which is
Hmm.
basically a state placing match. Hoffman doesn't get to
Hmm.
go to states. And I remember being at the state tournament that year, and I'm watching some of the guys. I'm like, the guys on the podium, I'm like, Hoffman from Kellenberg pinned some of these guys that are New York
Hmm.
State place winners.
Hmm.
You know, um, and it's just unfortunate that some of those guys that have quality wins, I mean, he had 2 losses the whole year and doesn't get into the state tournament.
It's
Yeah,
ridiculous, bro.
there's guys in the state tournament that, their records are like, 20 and 17, or
Well,
no, not 20 and
yeah.
17, but the
Hmm.
records don't necessarily reflect
Uh-huh.
uh, a state quality wrestler. And,
Hmm.
even going fast forward to this year, 2026, there's multiple um, guys from the Catholic State tournament that deserve to that not deserve, but they should have been in that state tournament.
Yeah, an
Uh,
example I hear a lot is what was it? Brendan Sprague.
Brennan's
He lost to somebody from the Catholic schools during the year. I think that was his only loss. And
Yep,
then Sprague beat him in the Catholic states, but now that kid didn't get to go.
yep. He took, and I think he finished third at our tournament.
Yeah, at the
That kid,
Catholic states. Yeah.
that kid.
Um,
So like there's three guys at that weight that could have gone.
mhm.
I know at 190 we had a guy, Chris Parisi, who lost to Caldwell 4-3. And
Mm.
he had like 5 losses. I remember a coach texted me. He's like, "Hey, Parisi's not in the tournament." I'm like, "No, only
It's
one guy goes from the
ridiculous.
Catholics."
Hmm.
And he beat guys again. He beat guys at Eastern States that were um, at the state tournament. He made it to the blood
Hmm.
round of Eastern States this past year, and that's another quality wrestler that would have
Would
fit
have
into the
at
tournament.
least been a factor, even if he didn't place,
Yeah,
whatever. He would have
yeah,
been,
yeah,
should have been
and
there.
And our state tournament, we start in a round of 32, but we don't have full 32-man brackets.
Bro, the buys piss me off. And I'm watching the first round matches this year. Not it, bro. Respectfully. And this
Yeah,
I'm just
nothing
saying
against the
yeah,
kids.
this is nothing against the kids, right? But I'm just respectfully speaking from from a spectator and somebody who I know my wrestling, right? I'm watching, I'm
Right.
like,
Yeah.
this is not the level of wrestling that I know New York is capable of having, right?
Yep.
And now I do know, I've heard that one of the big things that the federation wants is participation from all sections. That's important to them,
Right.
right? So in their mind, it's not really about bringing the best guys to the tournament. They want participation from all sections in the tournament, which I don't agree with. For me, it's like,
Yeah.
it should be, if your section didn't produce somebody who's at that level to be at the state tournament, you don't make it that year. Better
And
luck next year.
then we're going quantity over quality there.
Exactly. It's not.
We should have quality wrestlers. We used to do a wild card. I think
We
in
did the wild card.
2006, maybe we started that. I think we had a wild card when you were wrestling.
Yeah.
And it would go to like guys that had, quality
Quality,
wins.
quality wins.
They had
Those
points.
wild card dudes were serious.
Yes.
They were tough.
Yes.
And a lot of them would win some of them would win.
Yes.
Some of them would win, especially them Suffolk guys.
Yeah. Yeah.
Suffolk you don't want to see a Suffolk wild card.
100%. 100%.
So
like, I don't know if we could ever go back to that. Or do we try and add to that first round to get stronger quality, or we're there for 3 days now, because with the girls tournament,
with the girls,
and let's have
a 3-day tournament, just have it boys and girls next to each other, so
yeah.
Something that I've been talking about with a lot of people is I would love to see a regional format.
Yes.
Right. So
yep.
I mean, I'm like beating a dead horse, but I'm gonna keep saying it because I don't care. I want a 1 division format. So people might say, Lou, you're crazy. Some people say it'll never happen. That's what I keep hearing when I say it, right? I'm like, I want a 1 division format. And people keep commenting, it'll never happen. It'll never happen. That's what somebody's always gonna say before it does happen, right? They're always gonna say it'll never happen, right? So I'm gonna keep saying it. I'm gonna keep speaking it into existence. I would love to see a 1 division format. And even if it doesn't, right? I would love for it, but even if it doesn't, I still think a regional tournament would be better. Now, the way a regional tournament would work is essentially like and I don't know how this would work for the Catholic schools because I don't know exactly how the system is, and you can educate me, but I'm just going to speak for like Section A or like Long Island, right? It would be qualifiers, counties, right? And then counties is the basically how you make it to the state tournament.
Yep.
So basically now if you were to do a regional format, you would combine 11 and 8 together. You would combine 1 and 9 together because that would be like downstate. It'd be like Long Island's 1 region, then downstate, then it would be Central New York would be like 3 and 4, then Western New York 5 and 6, whatever.
Yep.
And you would basically do away with the qualifier, and the county would be like the qualifier. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
And then whatever, and then you could do. I like how the NCAA does it, where the stronger conferences get more bids. The Big Ten, a lot of times, all 8 of them qualify for the nationals. If you top 8 in the Big Ten, you're going to nationals. Meanwhile, if you're whatever EIWA or a weaker conference, you only get 1 or 2. You know what I mean? So I would love to see the same thing happen in New York, right? Let's say they do keep it as 2 divisions, right? So in Division 1, what are the strong conferences? It would be 11 and 8,
9,
and 9, and even Catholic school, right? Because I think Catholic schools should get more bids. But whatever. So those sections those regions would get more bids. Maybe they get 6. You know what I'm saying?
Right. You do a PowerPoint ranking system.
Ranking system.
Just
then
like
the weaker ones would get less. You know what I'm saying? Like in Division 1, right? Like Section 6 is not that strong. You know what I mean? In Division 1. They got
Yeah.
I looked at the thing, they had 0 points this year
Yeah.
in Division 1. 0 points. So
Yeah.
Section 6, they're gonna get maybe just the champion goes. You know what I'm saying? And that's it of that
Yep.
region, so
Kind of how they
I
do.
go
They
ahead.
listen, when I was in college, at Gettysburg, I wrestled Division 3. We started my freshman and sophomore year, we had a conference format.
Hmm.
And it was for Division 3 nationals. And
Okay.
in the conference format, my conference is a Centennial Conference. It was not a strong conference. Featured schools like Hopkins, NYU, some other
Okay. Yeah.
schools
Yeah. Yeah.
like
Yeah.
Northeast. And you had to win the conference in order to go to nationals. And in other,
Hmm.
conference tournaments, they were given top three because of the strength, the quality, because how those guys did at the national tournament the previous year.
Like Portland section or something like that. It's
Yep,
a tougher one. Yeah.
exactly, exactly. Um, and then junior year, they did switch to a regional format. And the schools, I think, still move around in the region,
Okay.
like different regions. Um, and, you know, it would have to be the powers that be, to decide, hey, let's go regional format. And you can do it. And the Catholic schools probably would fall, like Kellenberg, we probably would fall in that Long Island region because that's where we are. Iona Prep
Yes.
and would probably fall in that Section 1
Downstate.
region. And then
Hmm.
St. Francis would
This would
fall
be
in
in
that
six.
Western New York. And, Farrell would fall in that city region, which would
PSAO.
be, yeah, PSAL region. Um, and then it's a great idea. You have to
That
allocate.
would strengthen it right there.
It would. It would.
That
It
would
would.
strengthen it.
It would. And you get the better quality wrestlers in the state tournament.
You
You
do.
know, um, there's guys from the Catholics that maybe win that region. All right, maybe they take third in the region.
Absolutely.
Um, and then you're going to get the Section 8, Section 11 guys that are going to show up and qualify. And I know, I'm pretty sure the NCAA, they have like an at-large bid for even guys that don't necessarily play, so they can get
Yeah, it's
into the tournament.
like a wild card essentially,
Yeah,
kind
you
of.
put a wild card out there to see if there's a good guy that gets hurt or whatever the case
Hmm.
may be. You give them a wild card into the state tournament, and you fill that first round, or whether it's
Absolutely.
24 or 32 guys. And I think that'd be great.
I
And
agree.
one thing that I definitely try and do is get out of state in season to prepare for that postseason
Hmm.
like
Hmm.
gauntlet.
You
Um,
have to.
and I think if more schools were to do that in New York State, it's going to help their wrestlers at Eastern States, at the public state tournament, at those
Hmm.
qualifiers.
Hmm.
Kind of switching topics a little bit. You know, when we wrestle out of state in season, I think it has benefited us in the past couple of years. Where I have guys will go wrestle New Jersey and they'll wrestle a national qualifier and they get teched. And I'm like, you see the speed he
Hmm.
wrestles at,
Hmm.
and the
Hmm.
transitions. I said, that guy, if he went to New York State, he would probably win it. He's never
Hmm.
won a New Jersey State tournament.
Hmm.
And by our guy wrestling that New Jersey wrestler, he now has it. It it changes their mindset coming to New York, and it makes
Hmm.
them think like, all right, if I wrestle these guys out of state, I can come back and I can beat New York State place winners. I could beat
Absolutely.
a former county champ or whoever it is. And
Hmm.
I think that's a mindset we've developed with some of our guys by wrestling New Jersey competition. And we're going to continue wrestling New Jersey competition. We're going to try to expand the
Yep.
wrestling New Jersey
Yep.
competition,
Say it louder, baby. Yep.
because my buddy, I would love to get you in this like wrestling thing pool we do. We could talk about that another time. But my New
Hmm.
Jersey teammates, they always talk about how New Jersey wrestling is supreme,
It
superior.
is. It is.
And then I
It
have
is.
I have friends from Western PA, and they'll say a PA wrestling is the best, and we go back and forth between New York,
Hmm.
New Jersey, and PA. But it's when you look at the numbers at the NCAA tournament and the states that these guys,
You can't deny it.
you can't deny it. And you look
You
at
can't deny it.
Fargo, you look at Fargo, and you see where those guys are coming from.
Hmm.
You know, the stats speak for themselves. Um,
I think there was a time where New York was more competitive compared to New Jersey and Pennsylvania.
yeah,
Um, and I've actually done a video about this. So New York in 2026 has half the amount of nationally ranked kids compared to 2014, which was the
okay,
year that I graduated. right?
Okay.
So when I was in school, it wasn't weird or abnormal for a New York guy to beat a New Jersey state placer or a Pennsylvania state placer, right? It was, we even at that time we knew that they were better than us, but we were competitive. You know what I mean? Like we could,
Right.
for example, I went to the Pop and Flow National Duels
Yep.
with Team Excel, which was just a Long Island cherry pick team, right? And we
Yeah.
won the whole thing. We won it, and
Wow.
um we beat Dark Knights, which is like one of the premier teams in Pennsylvania, club teams. We beat Apex in the finals, which is New Jersey's like
New Jersey.
premier
Yeah.
wrestling club,
Yep.
right? And the New York guys were beating the New Jersey placers, the Pennsylvania placers. We used to go to the Waterway duels, right? I would go with like 631 Elite,
Hmm.
and we won it one year, and we took third another year, and that's in Pennsylvania, right? So we were competing with these teams with New Jersey and Pennsylvania, right? Even like, you know, my senior year in the national final, I beat a Pennsylvania state champion in the final. So in that
Right.
time, we didn't feel like the gap was so large. The best
Right.
guys in New York could 100%, scrap with the best guys in PA and New Jersey. And I think that's still the case. The best guys in New York are still very, very good.
Yes.
The
Oh,
where they're beating us is their depth. Their four,
yes.
5, and 6 guys are still mad good.
Right.
Meanwhile, us, the 4, 5, 6, there's a bigger gap. Like you'll have the state champion, and then he'll go and tech, the 4, 5, 6 guy. Meanwhile, in Pennsylvania, the state champion might have wrestled the guy who took sixth in the region, and it was a 1 point match that went
Right.
into overtime. You know
Right.
what I'm saying? So that's
Yeah.
really where they got us. It's the depth that they have. Their seventh and eighth guys can go to national tournaments and go crazy.
Right. I agree with you, and I'm not trying to like downplay the quality of wrestling in New York
Of
State. Like, there's
course,
guys that are
absolutely.
the two-time New York State champs, the multiple state place winners. Those guys are
Nationally ranked guys,
yeah, those
we have
guys are
them.
hands down. They can hang with anybody in the country.
Absolutely.
Um, but kind of what you're saying earlier, to get more guys to close that gap with the depth, I think is wrestling out of state in season. I think
Mm-hmm.
by doing that, we could help. We can close the gap with those like the depth,
Mm-hmm.
um, and I think that would be good for those 4, 5, 6 guys, and also I think
Mm-hmm.
it would even strengthen our state tournament. You would see a competitive like not like first round matches that are like, wow, all right, these two guys are two former state place winners,
Yep.
or
First round.
first round, or the
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
quarterfinal match. It's like, all right,
Mm-hmm.
this match could have been like a
State final.
state final or like a third place match or a fifth place match. If
Mm-hmm.
you strengthen the depth of the New York State tournament, and
Mm-hmm.
I think it used to be a one
It was
one
16
division
man.
tournament.
Yeah, it used to be at the
Used to be that.
2004. 2004 was the first year that I believe it was they split it up into 2 divisions. And even when I was in school, the format was different. It was
Hmm.
only a 16-man bracket.
Okay,
It was a
so they have
16-man bracket.
all right.
So a lot of times the first round matches were hard when it
Right,
was a 16-man bracket. Like, they were good. There was good wrestling from the start, and when it was a 16-man bracket, right?
right,
Now, I think I liked it, right? And also it only placed up to sixth place back then. There
yes,
was no seventh and eighth place. It was only up to sixth place, which
yep,
was also tough.
right,
So, you know, I think yeah, the regional tournament would definitely fix a lot of this. I believe that wrestling out of state is definitely going to also be another thing that's going to help improve New York. And like I said, we are blessed that we literally border the two best wrestling states in the country. Right?
right,
Imagine if you're like Texas or something. You know what I mean? Like
yeah,
now you really got to travel to find it. You got to go to California, which is a little trip, or you got to go, up north to like Ohio or Michigan, to
yeah,
find some good comp.
yep, yep, yep,
New York, we are blessed. We can go if you live downstate, you can go right to North Jersey. You know what I mean? Right to Jersey. If you live in
right.
Western New York, you go right into
Right to
Pennsylvania.
Pennsylvania. Yeah, yeah.
You know what I mean?
Those
You're
Western New
right
York
there.
schools, a lot of those Western New York schools, I think, take advantage of that.
They
Why
do.
would
They
you
wrestle
not?
in
Or
PA a lot.
yeah, yeah. I mean, it's right there. I have family from up from the Section 5 area, and they talked about
Hmm.
how, like, in the off season, they're going to Pennsylvania to wrestle,
Yep.
in those off
Yep.
season tournaments. I know for us in the off season, I push, let's go to Pennsylvania, let's go to New Jersey, get out of New York. We always do some of
Hmm.
the, local events going on, but off season, it's like get out of state, continue to get
Get
out of state
out. Yeah.
because beating quality wrestlers out in New Jersey, Pennsylvania, you're going to come back and the speed in which you wrestle at, the competition is just going to
Hmm.
feel tremendously different. Um,
Absolutely.
and I think if more guys continue to do that in New York State, you'll see that gap close in those trail end guys. And, I just, it's frustrating that more coaches don't do it. I think if more coaches did, we would definitely close the gap.
I think
Um,
they just need to be put. I think it's the restrictions that are holding them back. It's the New York State
yeah.
restrictions, but what they have to do is like it's. I use the analogy of like, okay, I already watched this. Let's
Yeah.
say, um, I have a script for something or for like the doctor, right? If
Yep.
I'm lackadaisy with the insurance, they're not gonna call me back. They're not gonna have no urgency. You know what I mean? Like, let's say
Right. Right.
I'm in pain, and I got to see the doctor. If I don't call, they're not gonna call me. I gotta be bothering them, like, yo, I need the script. I need the script. Like, oh,
Yeah.
you forgot? I need it today. I need it today. You got to keep
Yep.
bothering them until you get it. So it's got to be the same thing here in New York, right? It's got to be if we don't make a big deal about it, they're just gonna be like, oh, we're good the way we are, no problem. But if
Right.
coaches are stepping up and be like, yo, we want to travel out of state, we want to travel out of state, then more people are saying that, yo, we don't like the travel restrictions. We got to get out of New York. If enough people do it, then we're basically gonna force their hand. They're gonna be like, okay, shit, a lot of people feel this way. Or if we're
Right.
ignoring them, then it's basically like we're ignoring the people. So we gotta, and that's why I have this whole platform, right? People say, oh, things will never change. But my goal of this whole thing is to showcase that, like, yo, there's a lot of people who feel the same way that I feel.
You're
And if we
100%
could,
right.
and
And
if we could get the views up and see that, yo, this is how the people want it, maybe things will change.
yeah, no, I appreciate how supportive you are of in New York State wrestling at the national, regional level, and a support for Catholic school wrestling, especially seeing
Mm-hmm.
how much stronger we've gotten within the past couple of years. And I think if we can all just get on the same page, New York State wrestling is going to get better
Yep.
at the national and regional level. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and I think there's a lot of coaches out there that do agree with you.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I just think it's a matter of the powers that be see that, okay, there's enough support to make, a change or to
Mm-hmm.
make
Mm-hmm.
um, our get more quality wrestlers into the state tournament. And,
Absolutely.
I think that would be great. But,
Mm-hmm.
it's the powers that be that ultimately have
They have
that
that
decision.
decision.
Yeah.
Well, hey
Yeah.
Joe, I see we got like less than a minute here, so
Okay. Yeah.
I
Sorry.
want to close. No, you're good. I just want to
Yeah.
close this off the right way. Joe
Yeah.
Fiore, thank you for coming to the 152 show. It was a pleasure talking with you, chopping it up. Keep doing your thing, keep traveling out of state, and go Catholic schools, bro.
Thank you. Appreciate it, Lou. Appreciate you having me on and continue doing what you're doing. Love the support for Catholic School Wrestling, New York State Wrestling, and the advocate you are for the boys and all of New York State Wrestling.
Appreciate
Thank
you,
you.
brother.